What is going on, everybody? Jesse here for 3Prong Gaming, and in today's episode we will end up, doing this. We're going to have a decal that gets placed in the world, and we're going to set up to where our resource buildings, currently our mining shaft, can only be placed within a specific area, as well as make sure it collides with our static meshes no matter how many we have in the world here. So, which was actually a little more complicated than I was anticipating. So yeah, if I can't get everything done in this video, as you know, I like to try to keep things as short and sweet as possible and concise. Don't worry, I will do the second episode right away and you guys will get a double feature, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it's going to end up being. So grab a bigger cup of coffee, sit back, relax, load up your editor, and let's get this thing going. Alright, so in the last episode, which was a live episode, my first live stream, and thank you all for showing up that came by, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. So yeah, in that episode, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. We made this customizable box here to where we can place our resources and move things around and resize everything and add extra meshes, you know, all kinds of sorts of things. So go check that out if you haven't. And yeah, so like I said at the beginning, this is most likely going to end up taking 2 episodes, but I will give you guys back feature. We got a lot to put in here in this episode, even though that looked pretty simple. There's still a lot we got to do, and we're also prepping for the AI. So as soon as this little section's done, we're going to be working on the AI. So yeah, but that won't be part of the double feature today with the AI. So let's get this going here. Let's open up our Resource Master Blueprint. And we're going to need to add a few components here. And just so you know, I've already recorded this episode once, and I did not like the way it came out. So if I come across something that I forgot to delete to do this video, then I apologize, but I will let you know when those come up. So we need to add a box collision, and let's go ahead and call this one Production Volume. And what this is going to be used for, right now we're just setting it up today, but what this is going to be used for is when we do the AI. We want the AI, once they touch this particular collision box, to begin doing their mining or farming or whatever they're doing. We don't necessarily want them entering the spawn area volume, because there could be navigation issues with them trying to get in there and do those things. So we're going to set this to be just slightly bigger than the spawn area volume, so that way once they touch it, yeah, they can start doing their thing. So but yeah, so go ahead and drop that in. And let's Control W that. We're going to need another one. We'll call this one Placeable Area. Again, it is a box collision. We just Control W on the production volume. And what this is going to be the area definable by how far out you want the players to be able to place the building. So this one will be adjustable as you're placing the resources. And then let's go ahead and add another one, and we'll call this we'll make it a decal, and we will call this Good Placement Decal. All right, and let's just go ahead and get this out of the way right now. Let's just go ahead and do the material for this decal. Let's jump down here into our materials folder and right click, go to materials, create a new material, we'll just call it placement. We'll call it placement. Yeah, M_placement, that'll work. So let's open this up. This isn't too complex, so we'll be able to jump through it right quick. We're going to make it like we do everything else. We're going to make it to where we can change its features on the fly. We're going to make an instance out of this. So hold 3, click in the graph there, and let's get a 3 vector here. This is going to be our color. So right click on it. Let's convert it to a parameter so we can change it. Change its name to, color. I'm not going to worry about making any groups for any of this right now. This is pretty simple material, so we don't necessarily need that. And I'm going to default its color because we're going to initially do it as a good placement is what we're going to end up calling it. But, you know, I figure green is let you know, hey, cool, you can place here. Red's usually bad, so we'll just make the default green and take the white pen, plug it into base color. So now we need to get that flashing ability. So let's right click. Before we do any of this, select the M placement, and One thing we need to do here, it shouldn't matter, but for some reason it does. We need to make this a deferred decal, but you'll see as soon as we do, it grays this out and we can't change it. And even though this is sent translucent, we're still not getting the full translucency out of it. So go back to surface. Let's change this to translucent. And now let's go down here and change it to deferred decal. Okay, so let's right click in the graph, do time. We need time node, and hold M, click in the graph, drop in a multiply. We're going to take this time, and what we're going to multiply it by is we're going to have the ability to kind of change this time, make the flashing faster or slower, however you want to do it. Try to make it as easy as possible. Hold 1, let's click in here. We'll get a single scalar vector, and we won't change the value on it yet. Right click on it, convert it to a parameter, and we'll just call this one speed. Set its default value to 1 because we want it to flash, because we're multiplying here. So if we multiplied it by 0, then it wouldn't flash at all. Time would be 0. So take this, plug this into B, and for the max, you can set the max to what you want, like you can with pretty much anything else. But playing with it, 3 is probably even still too much. But it's good to have yourself a little leverage right there. So default 1, 0 min, 3 max. All right, so now we take this and we plug this into a linear sine right there. Goes into the value. And from the linear sine, we need to run an if. So right click and type if. So take the linear sine, plug it into A, and then hold 1, and let's get another single scalar value in here. Right click it. Let's convert this to a parameter. We'll call this one fade amount. What was it? Fade amount. And this is going to allow us to just kind of change how far it's going to fade. And for the default values of this, 0, and we're going to set it to 1. All right. Default value is 0. Take this, let's plug this into B, and then we'll also take the sign right here. So if A is greater than or equal to B, then it'll run A. All right. If not, then we want it to run this one. We'll run the fade amount. Okay, so if this is higher, it'll just kind of fade it out. We're going to take this now and just plug this into opacity. I'm not quite sure how this works. I'm not too familiar with materials yet. I'm working on it, but yeah, this works. So let's put in another single scalar, push 1, and click in the graph, and then convert it to a parameter. We'll call this one emissive. I'm not used to that. I need to click in here and type emissiveness. All right. We're going to have the ability to just kind of make this glow if we want it to glow a little bit. And for its default values, 0, 0, and the max to 5. Anything above that really just kind of gave some really bad blooming and didn't look too good. Even 5 is really pretty strong. And then pull off of this. Actually, let's just hold M, drop in a multiply. Now we'll take the white pin from the color, put it into A. We want to multiply it by the emissiveness, and then plug that into the emissive color. And that is it. That's our decal in a nutshell. Let's go ahead and apply that and save it. All right, now that's saved. We can see that it's working right there. One thing we're going to need to do, I've already done it, so I meant to actually mention at the beginning, go into your project settings. We actually need, for the decals, the problem with decals right at this point is if it's dark or shaded, you won't be able to see the decal. We want this decal to be seen no matter what. So what we need to do is, in your project settings, come down here to render and find under lighting, debuffer decals. Now it says it's an experimental decal feature, but it also says combined with movables in early ZPass and early ZPass. So enable this, and then when you're done, come down here and find in optimizations, we got early ZPass. It's defaulted to decide automatically. That should be fine to let it decide automatically. Movables in early ZPass is false by default, so you'll have to enable that. Now it says here whether to render movable objects in the early ZPass, need to reload the level. Now it doesn't force you to restart the engine, but as soon as you enable this, go ahead and shut down your project, load it back up. When you do, it's going to want to compile the shaders. I had about 4,100 shaders. Shouldn't be too bad. I have got a lot of things running on my computer right now, so it did take me a little while for those shaders to compile. So be prepared for that just in case. It probably took me a good half hour to get those get those compiled. So do that, and then we'll be good to go. So when we do, we come out here now, we got our material. Let's right click on it, create a material instance out of it. And in case at some point you may want a bad area to place, if you want to use this decal to, display red or a different color to display something else, then we can. So for this, we'll call this one m_good placement _ instance. Oh, see, I forgot to delete that. I'll change the name here. I've already got this here. Which one? M placement. Yeah, so let's delete that. Delete it. Yeah, like I said, I forgot to delete a couple things. So now let's go back. I want to rename this. I want to finish making this instance. There we go. So now we got it. So if we take this instance now, just to show you guys, and we drop it into the world here. There we go. It was just too high. So let me move back here. So we got the material instance in the world. Move it over so we can kind of see what's going on. If we open up the instance, drop it down here so we can see what's going on. Here's our scalar parameters that we changed, or that we opened up to be able to change. So if you want to change the color, you come in here. You can change the color to whatever you want. And come down here, the emissiveness. We may not be able to see this too well because I turned off some of my... I forget what it's called. The yeah. Anyways, I don't know. I changed it, so probably won't be able to really see the glow too well. But trust me, it's there. So yeah, if we change this back down to 0, you'll kind of see it fade out a little bit. So the glow's there. Anyway, so we come down here to the fade amount. So this is what this one does. We crank it up all the way to 1. And it pretty much seemingly stops it from fading. So 1's probably a little too strong if you want to change it. But you see kind of, it's a lighter pulse, right, than if we have it all the way down to 0. It's full fade in and fade out. And then the speed of it, if we put it down to 0, it'll seemingly stop. Turn it up to full value 3. And see what I mean? Anything more than that, it really is kind of too much, especially if you got a emissive glow on it. But all the defaults are there in case you want them. I'm going to put everything back to where I had it. Close it down. All right. So, and I'm going to change this back to green. Press OK. Save it. And let's just go ahead and delete this decal. Go back into your resource master, and on the good placement decal that we have right there, take its material and we'll call instance good placement instance right there. Awesome. So we come in here in the viewport. We should have it. You'll see it right there. We're going to actually have to rotate this around a little bit. We'll worry about that in a little while. So let's jump into the construction graph now. Let's go ahead and set some values right here. For this production volume, what we're going to go ahead and do is, like I said, this is going to kind of be where the NPC can begin working in the mine, or whatever they're out getting ready to harvest. So with this, we're not going to make this editable to where you can change this size. We just want this slightly bigger than the spawn area. So we're going to use the spawn area as well to help define how big this is. So let's pull off of this and do box extent. We want to set the box extent. Okay. And what we want to set it to is we want to do this plus a value. So vector plus float. We just want to add something to this. So let's go ahead and create another variable. We'll call this production volume size. Make it of type float. Okay, and I'm going to compile it, and I'm going to set the default value here to 100. All right, this is what this is going to do now when we plug this in. Is now it's going to add 100 to all vectors within here, all 3 vectors in here. So it's going to be exactly 100 units bigger in all axes than the spawn area. So when you change your spawn area, it's going to automatically change the size of this production volume to be 100 units bigger. So set that to what you want. 100 is fine. I'll actually probably end up moving it down to make it smaller down the road, but right now this is good for us. We won't know until we actually do the AI though. But we want them to get relatively close to the spawn area before they start working on it. Okay, compile and save that. Also here, we need to set some collision. So on our instant static mesh, like I said, there was kind of a little bit of an issue with this. If you look right now, I had a couple issues. One, we'll see here. Oh, because I disconnected it. Jump back in here. Let's hook this back up so you can see what I'm talking about. That's funny because I did the same thing in the other video that I'm re-recording over. Come back out here. So we got our meshes. If we click the landscape and push P, you'll see the navigation mesh pop up. Right now it's blocking the nav mesh. That's what we want. Okay. But when we come back in here, what we actually need to do, the buildings, if we were to play this right now, the buildings aren't actually, even though this is all set to block, you can see over off the screen. I can't get off the screen. You can see right here, it's actually set to block all. But no matter how I did with the collisions, I still couldn't get it to actually block it. So we have to do a little bit of tricky work on that, which we'll get to in a little bit. But what we got to do actually is we need to do a custom collision here. Right? And then on this, we need to make sure that generate overlap is set. It should be by default, but just make sure that overlap events is enabled. And then come down here and we need to actually enable, make everything pretty much overlap. Okay, we'll leave landscape. We'll actually set landscape to block landscape. You could probably leave it on ignore. It'd be just fine as well. As a matter of fact, we will. We'll just leave that on ignore. No, actually, we will need block. We do need to leave that on block. And then down here, world dynamic, we'll leave that on overlap as well. Everything should be okay. Now, the problem with this, so there's actually one that's not okay, and I know it's not. That's why I showed you this. Now that we did that, you see here that we no longer have nav mesh. This took me a few minutes to figure out, so I'll save you guys the headache for this. You figure the nav mesh, actually, when you select the nav mesh, it's actually a world dynamic object. If you check the presets here, it's or a world static object. So you figure if you block anything, if you have the instant static mesh block that, it should technically block it, but it wasn't. It took me a while to figure this one out, but what it is, it's actually pawn. You need to set it to block pawn. Makes sense because the nav mesh is used to move the pawn around. Come out here and now it updates. If it doesn't automatically update for you, then just go ahead and select it and just move it a little bit and it'll update just fine. Okay, so that's what we need. So let's go ahead and I want to get rid of this P, and so that way we don't see that anymore. Okay, and I'm just going to save this. All right, so now back in here, one other thing we need to do now is we need to set the size of our placeable area. Okay, so let's go ahead and just drag this in, set that right there. And again, we need to set the box extent of this. Set box extent. A little touchy mouse today. My mouse is driving me nuts. All right, so we set this. Let's go ahead and plug this back in so we don't forget again. And for this, let's create another variable. We'll call this one building placement bounds. Okay. By default, let's go ahead and make this vector. By default, this is going to be a little bit bigger than the spawn area size, but you'll be able to, if you want to make it smaller in the spawn area, I didn't put any safeguards to go against that. So you can, but you probably shouldn't because, you know, you're not leaving yourself much room to be able to place the a building. So let's go ahead and make this one editable because we do want to do this, and show 3D widget, so that way we have control of it out in the editor when we're placing it around. So take the building bounds, drag it out here, add it, vector plus vector, and we're just going to add it to the spawn area size. All right, take that, plug that in right there. So now if we come out here and just take a look at this, compile and save it, come back out here into the map. Now we've got our placeable bounds, which is right there. You see how big it, you see we're able to move it right there. All right. And I defaulted this as there. You can make this like we did with the production volume where it's, you know, a little bit bigger than the other one, but I figured the fact that we can go ahead and adjust it is just fine. So if we come back up here, building placement bounds, set that back to 0, back to default, you're actually not going to see the bounds in here because it's the same size as the spawn area. But yeah, as soon as we start to move it out, select the widget, move it out, you'll see it. So just like that. And right now, so we want this decal to be able to move with the size of that. So what we actually need to do now is come back into the resource manager, and again, a little bit more room. Let's go ahead and move this back here. This is all before this for each on the levels. Let's grab our good placement decal. Now, the problem with decals in here is you really don't get much options for working with it. So if we come down here to components and look for, let's see. Well, if we go box, or if we go extent, actually it's not extent, it's size. If we select this, you can see you can actually set the size of your decal. It's called decal size. You can't get that, right? So set, or even if we just type in size, right? You can get the decal size, you can get fade screen size, but you can't actually set it. I don't know why, but it kind of makes it a pain in the butt. So what I did to work around that is we're going to actually adjust the scale, because now we can come out here. We can actually set scale, set world scale. What did I do? Set, no, we're going to do set relative scale. Okay. So let's just drag that up and plug it in. Okay. And the scale we're actually going to set it to work around this. If we take this good placement size, or take the decal size of the good placement decal, set its default values to 1, 1, and 1. Okay. And all the axes. Compile and save that. All right. So now if we scale this up, we can take the size of the placeable area, because this decal is going to cover the placeable area. We can take the size of this, drag it out here. We can get its box extent. Let's just get it. And then right click on it. Let's go ahead and split this. We can actually get the size of this now and just use this to scale it, because this is 1 times whatever the size of this is going to be the new scale. So it'll be perfect. So let's actually recombine that. We're going to have to break that out, but I'm going to show you this right here, show you why we're doing it. So if we plug that right into the new scale 3D right there, compile it and save it, we come back out. There we go. The decal is the size of our basement bounds right there, right? And now the decal actually looks a bit funny because it's sideways. You see how it's kind of faded out here on the edges? And the decal is actually currently not the right size. What we need to do, we need to go in here into the decal, and we need to rotate everything. I don't know why they do this with decals, but for some reason they just do. If we take the decal, we need to go 90. We need to set, how come my keyboard's not working? We need to set this all to 90, 90, 90, and 90. That's going to flip the decal for us. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're going to be able to, because of the adjustments that we're doing on it. So compile back out here. Now you'll see that it's really kind of not right. So what we got to do, see how it's just not right. If we were to scale up the building placement bounds, you'll see that the green bounds right here is actually going in opposite directions. So except for that one right there, so which is the Y. So the X and the Z need to be flipped. So if we go back in here into the resources, take a box extent, let's disconnect it, right click and split the struct, pull off this, let's do make vector, and take the X, plug it into the Z, take the Z and plug it into the X, and the Y can just go straight into the Y. Let's compile it and save it, come back out here, and there we go. This is now as big as the placeable bounds, right? The Z doesn't really matter right here as far as how tall it is, but you can see it's growing with it. And the only reason why it doesn't look like it matches up is because of where the pivot points are at. But you can scale this up. If you scale it down too far, you can see that, it only touches certain portions of it. So yeah, everything will scale up now with the size of our spawn area. So we got that all set up. That's perfect. Looks good. and now we don't have that fading along the edges. All right, and with that, you know what? I think we're about 25 minutes into this. So with that, we've got a lot more coding to do. I know it didn't seem like we created much, and I'm kind of fearful I might have to do 3 episodes here, do a triple back to back. And but yeah, let's go ahead and end this right here, because anything we start from this point forward is a little bit more involved. But we got this out of the way. It looks good. It's sizable. So yeah, our resource master for the most part is done at this point. So let's go ahead and pause, wrap this up. I'm going to jump right back in, record the next episode. So yeah, until that next episode, if you like this video, please do me a favor, go down and hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe while you're down there liking it. And well, I'll see you in a couple minutes in the next video. Peace.